bigger role, globalization, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, I think Priscilla, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just have a question about this political party called PKMS in Singapore that is supposed to stand for Malay rights historically. So while there are possibly advantages of having such a party in the Singapore political system, such as, for example, putting up some of the unique challenges faced by the Malay community, a bit like how parties like Plaid Cymru or Flemish parties like to do this for minorities in other countries, there's also the possibility of the ethnicization of welfare, as was mentioned by Dr. Rahim earlier, as well as the fact that the first past the post make it very hard for them to actually win a seat in the Singapore election. So I was wondering, in this light, what the PKMS is currently doing to advance Malay rights in Singapore, and also what sort of role it could possibly play in Singapore politics in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to take these are last questions, okay? Yeah. Okay, yeah, go ahead, sir.
I agree that there's institutionalized racism in our society, and that once a social group has been marginalized, it's hard for them to break out of this cycle of distribution. So, yeah, some people claim that that universal education and national exams are the great equalizers, where of course everyone has to go to school and take these exams, but obviously, as Dr. Rahim said, that's not true because of the fact of meritocracy. So, like for example, the 50% of parents of students in Raffles graduates were, and so some people say that, oh no, this is sort of like natural selection. Smart people have smart children. Obvious, and even our leaders once thought that way as well.
So what's your question? Yeah, your question is?
Yeah, but I do not believe so. So I believe that like the internet is the great equalizer, because you know the internet is free, and even the best money that the best share of money you get will not be as knowledgeable as Google. And the internet provides a platform for people who might not have traditional media.
Okay.
Have a voice, so
yeah, I think
my question is for all the
yes.
speakers. Wondering what else can we do to in terms of policy that can break this chain or this cycle of work.
Thank you. I think you have a question. Yes. Okay, it's the last one, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I just have to take last two. Okay, just one and then one more. That's it. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Yes.
This is not actually a question, but see, the identity of the Malay has not been clearly explained. In Singapore's context, in Malaysia, Singapore, the Malay, the identity of a Malay or who qualifies as a Malay is very unique. Malay is the only, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the only race that is synonymous with Islam. That is why now there is a joke going around. Somebody, a Malay family wants to adopt Tan Cheng Bock. Correct? So that if he converts, he can become a Malay, he can stand for elections. But the PAP has thought through this, right? They raised the bar from 100 million to qualify to 500 million. 600. So that is the problem. So we have not really solved who is the Malay. As far as we are concerned, now people are talking about the Malays are not the original people in Singapore and so on. You see, the Malays, they want to differentiate the Boyanis, the Javanis, the Bugis, but we are all in the Nusantara. They want to say that we are also immigrants. So why should they have the Malays have special privilege? So all these things are now being played around. And I think there is an ulterior motive in this. Right? So You don't have time, right? I got a lot to say. Never mind.
Okay, I think that's it. I'm just on it. Last question. Last one.
Okay, my question is about space. Okay, so we've talked about the dissolution of Malay majority districts like the Southern Islands, Kampung Ubi, even the dispossession of Kampung Glam, which is in proximity to us right now. But so besides just that, there's another element to this, and that's how new spaces being constructed have adopted an increasingly syncretized character. So a lot of people actually remarked that when Marina Bay was developed, it was built along feng shui principles. I think Alfian Saad in his play JRC even joked that the Marina Bay Sands was like the Fuluso Trinity. So things like that, and also not just in our urban spaces, but even the MRT has become a contested space for languages. New MRT lines being constructed actually privilege Chinese public announcements and leave out the minority language. So my question is, should Article 152, if we follow through with wanting to implement the spirit of 152, should it also extend towards the equal representation of the races in public spaces as well, besides just institutions and things?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so just quick ones. PKMS I think developed out of Singapore UMNO, that branch in Singapore, and I think because it was a branch of UMNO, they were trying to follow the consociational model of politics in Malaysia, where you have the Alliance Party and each party is race-based, right? But that of course wouldn't work in Singapore because that was not a political arrangement. And number two, because you're representing a very tiny minority, around 14 to 15% at most. I don't think that particular party would have had much of a future with that kind of platform in Singapore. So that's all about PKMS.
Okay, and you want to say anything else? You want to jump in or PJ? Any last words?
I just want to take some a little question just now about what maybe the three things that I hope to see in the future, which is tied up with like what possibly we can do, right? So interesting point about activating or invoking Article 152 when it comes to, say, the protection of multiculturalism. But I wonder also whether that has to involve some kind of judicial review, which is prohibitively expensive, or whether that presidential council minority rights, for example, which apparently has been sleeping since 1970, I wonder whether that they can make themselves more open, more available, and act as a kind of ombudsman, hopefully, in terms of having to arbitrate some of these issues. Like for example, we used to see all 4 languages, and now I think we increasingly are seeing 2, right? So of course it's impractical sometimes, but I think we need to have that kind of a commitment if we are going to have a truly multicultural society. Impracticality is built to it somehow. Yeah. So good questions. I also do hope that that CMIO model, as much as this is my wish, as much as I think it serves Singapore very well for a while, but I think it needs to move beyond that. So we have a multicultural model. I'd like to see us move more into the intercultural, because multiculturalism also creates its own problems, right? So you have Jalan Surya Vasantham, but then there's no crossing over of those images and those actors, and that's why sometimes you have blackfacing still occurring in Singapore. Yeah, sometimes you have radio stations saying certain things also on the assumption that maybe people from that race not listening to us, so so you have all these private languages that occur and actually virtual silos because of multiculturalism, because you want to give each community its own space, right? So I'd like to see more interculturalism, and I'd like us to also really look at from there to move on to diversity, because obviously Singapore is coming very, very diverse, and we have to start respecting differences, right? So we're looking at Filipinos, we're looking at Burmese people, all other kinds of people who will not fit into the CMIO model. I think that's the future.
Last words. Yeah, with regard to the Presidential Council, they're apparently asleep, as noted earlier. Now, I think this is an institution that could be a lot more energetic, could be a lot more energetic with regard to its appraisal of legislation, policies, and so on. But I think the composition of this presidential council is an issue as well. Perhaps we could have more people with a track record, a solid track record of community activity, NGO activity, civil society activity, who've done it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, who've got this helicopter view of Singaporean society, not just a top-down view, but also a bottom-up view. Perhaps we need such Singaporeans in the Presidential Council. But what I'm particularly concerned about is the way by which I think Singaporean society has become increasingly unequal, increasingly elitist, where I believe in the earlier days, in the 60s, 70s, and to a lesser extent the 80s, Singapore was a much more equitable society, where social mobility, moving up the socio-economic ladder, was more accessible. It's more restricted now. The social escalator has slowed down for a range of reasons, not just to blame the government, it's to do with the global economy as well. And so we need to address this highly unequal society that Singapore has become. And when we look at the Gini coefficient ratio, for example, Singapore's Gini coefficient, which measures income inequality, is one of the worst in the world. In the East Asian region and the world, we really need to address that. If we are to create a society of, as noted in our pledge, where everybody has a place in the sun, and our constitution as well. The Singapore dream. Let's try and realize that Singapore dream. Thanks. I think PJ.
Okay. So I just want to make one point that if you, having heard everything you've heard today, if you want a better Singapore, fight for it. Right? Go out there and fight for it. First, fight inside here. Be self-aware. Understand all these different forces, these different incentive structures, these different political structures that have been put in place to shape our behavior, and fight against it. Go out, tell your friends, right? Tell them, make them aware, right? Make them see the matrix, because it's all around us, and you have to understand how incentives shape behavior, and we have talked about that today. So fight, and if you want a better Singapore, fight for the better Singapore that you want. The thing about our government is actually it is very responsive to the people. If it weren't, it wouldn't keep pulling all this crap, right? The reason why it keeps rigging elections is because it is very responsive. It is very terrifying of the people's vote. That's why they introduced GRCs, the presidency, gerrymandering, because they are very sensitive. That's why there were so many changes. That's why we had the PGP, Pioneer Gerrymandering Package after the 2011 election, so that we wouldn't vote against them. They are very sensitive to what we do. So if you want a better Singapore, we live in a system where the government actually is very responsive. And if you convince enough people that together we can build a better Singapore, the government will respond, the system will respond, and things will get better. But you have to fight for it.
Okay, guys, I've got breaking news. Our donations are still very short, so please help. Thank you. And I'd like you to join me to thank our speakers, Dr. Rahim, Alfian, and Projector. But I'd like to thank you also for coming and joining us. Please look out for our next talk, LT4, and our addresses are here. Thank you very much, and journey mercies. Bye.